Back again with another installment of dismantling race. We're gonna start, get right to the money. Start with the Naturalization Act, 1790. We're gonna highlight some things here. One, that the first rule, grant national citizenship. This law limited naturalization to what? Free white persons. And so right here, it says that slaves, free blacks, which are different, are not. They're excluded from citizenship. Free white persons are citizens, but free blacks are not. Let's go to the Dredd Scott decision. March 1857. Scott lost 7 out of the 9. Declared that no slave or descendant of a slave could be a citizen. Just like Naturalization Act of 1790 said, no slave, or even when we freed you and your status changed to free black, is a citizen, because they are not free white. Slave, free black are not citizens of America. The categories don't change, but people can move within the categories. So you can, no matter what position above number 4, anybody can become a number 4. Just like slave became free black. Where? Emancipation Proclamation. In a single stroke, it changed the federal legal status of more than 3 million enslaved persons from slave to free black. Dredd Scott says slave or a free black is a U.S. citizen. In 1857, 4 million slaves in America, they argue. He said the court's ruling affected the status of every enslaved and free black in the United States. Because Dredd Scott said that this category or this category does not equal a citizen of America. The only one that does is this one. We said that in 1790. We affirmed it in Dredd Scott in 1857. So let's see if some different legislation changed anything. 1863 emancipated the slaves. Some argue you went from slave to free white and a citizen. I argue no, you went from slave to free black, and free black is not a position of citizenship here. Some people argue that Emancipation Proclamation or the 13th Amendment took you from slave to free white citizen of America. I argue you only went from 4 to 3, and 3 don't equal 1. Let's see. Then we got the 14th Amendment. 1863, 14th Amendment is 1868. It addresses citizenship rights and equal protection under the laws. The 14th Amendment is one of the most litigated parts of the Constitution. The most litigated. And it addresses citizenship rights and equal protection under the laws. All right. So now we had something called the civil rights cases. And there was a ruling. Let's go to the top. The civil rights cases. 5 legal cases that the Supreme Court consolidated, put it all into one. And they had a ruling. October 15th, 1863. Let's go down to the ruling. You got to do some research too. So I ain't going to read it all. Civil Rights Act was the last one of the Reconstruction statutes. Congress tried to secure the law and some semblance of racial equality. What they're trying to do is they're trying to have some equality between these two people. Even though the law isn't the same for these two, it's just trying to create a country where it appears that we're treating everybody nice, even though the laws apply to people differently. Only because this country is about protecting its citizens. And everybody else comes second or third dairy. Look, secondary or third. So blacks really are second class citizens, they're third. Or this. This case, that's right, tried in 1883. The government argued on behalf of the Civil Rights Act, declaring that the 13th Amendment not only abolished slavery, but conferred all rights of free citizens, all the rights of free citizens on the former slaves. This is big. Because Dredd Scott said that you're not a citizen if you black, if you a free black. This term wasn't used as the African American is a very new term. This was free black. They're saying that you can't be a free black and a citizen. This case is arguing, can blacks use the 13th Amendment in their defense and also the 14th Amendment for their protection? This case is asking, can the free blacks that are in this federal legal position, did the 13th Amendment take them from slave all the way to citizen? Am I a citizen as a free black? Or am I a free black and can I use the laws for the citizens in my defense? The court disagreed. Some feel like it robbed the amendment of much of its meaning. But the amendment, the 14th Amendment, really did extend you citizenship. But you didn't take it because you kept the name free black. If you a part of a crew and you leave that crew, and you go to a different crew, can you still call yourself what the old crew name was? No. You gotta call yourself the new crew. That's what you are now. Can you wear the colors of the old crew? Nah. You don't wear the old colors of you the new crew now. Because you came to us. We offered you this. That means you gotta be like us now. If we the free whites, you become the free whites now. If we offer you our status, you can't come over here and think you one of us and keep calling yourself your old crew name, wearing your old crew colors. You free white now if you gonna be a citizen here. Nothing less. And we don't want to hear about your old crew name. Because if you keep talking that old crew name, we're going to keep treating you like that old crew. Not like us. But if you accept everything about our crew and you down, we're going to fight for you. Everything we do, you going to do. Every right that we got in our crew, you going to have. All the privileges that go along with being in our crew, you get. But not if you keep screaming your old affiliation. Because if you keep screaming your old affiliation, you can't use our privileges, which we call laws and privileges and immunity. That's all for the crew. The court disagreed. They said, no, you blacks can't use the law of the citizens in your defense. These are the civil rights cases. 1883. Then Plessy versus Ferguson, another landmark case. What was Plessy doing? Plessy was trying to get in an all-white railroad car. Plessy said, I ain't sitting in the black one. I ain't gonna do it. I refuse. I'm a citizen. You can't make me sit in no black railway car. They not as sweet as the citizen stuff. Plessy was this, trying to sit in the railroad cars designated for the citizens. Now Plessy, way I understand, you think you three and you trying to get some of this number one treatment. I don't think that's right. But let's see what they said. Let's see what Plessy versus Ferguson said. Plessy was found guilty on the grounds that the law was reasonable exercise of the state's policing powers based upon custom. They said, look, the states can come up with these special laws for these free blacks as long as they don't get in the way of the Constitution for its citizens, the laws for its citizens. Here's the issue. Can the states, do they have the right to come up with their own special state codes that separate citizens from free blacks? Do we got the right to do that? Yes. They find it that there's nothing wrong. We can't do nothing about you separating the citizens from everybody, from the free blacks. We don't have no problem with that. What can we say about that? We offered them citizenship, they didn't take it. They could be us, so it's really not inhumane when you really could be us. You could be white. We gave you the opportunity. You chose an inferior status, and in response to you denying or refusing our citizenship, now we're going to come up with separate accommodations. We don't have no problem with that. What's the issue with the 13th Amendment? They say, nah, you can't use the 13th. We abolished slavery. This ain't got nothing to do with slavery. We know what's messed up. How they getting in the way that all these laws are curtailing your pursuit of life, liberty, and property. We understand what's going on. But really, if you really gonna find out if you got something, you gotta go to the 14th, because that's better suited for you. We already told you in another case that the 13th didn't make you a citizen too, so you can't use the 13th. That ain't make you a citizen. Nah, go to the 14th. All right. 14th say all persons born and naturalized here can be a citizen. If you was born here, you was born this. As long as you don't tell me that you none of 2 through 4. If you tell me that you one of these, then you not number one. But you was born this. I can't make you this, but you was born it. That's what the 14th Amendment said. All persons. You good. You one of us. You in the crew. And all the protection, privileges, immunities, that's for the citizens. You straight. proper construction of the amendment involves a question of exclusive privileges rather than race. Its main purpose was to establish citizenship for former slaves, to give definitions of citizenship, to protect the privileges and immunity of its citizens. You should really be coming here to the 14th Amendment if you was a citizen. But guess what? It was intended to enforce absolute equality. The 14th Amendment was trying to make everybody a part of the crew. Everybody white. It was intended to enforce absolute equality of the two races before the law. The only way you can have absolute equality is to be the same. Everybody's white. That's absolute equality. It was intended to abolish distinctions. If everybody is white, there can be no distinctions. But if you call yourself something else, then you can have distinctions. Can't have them if everybody is free white. Based upon color. Yeah, because if everybody's white, you can't have distinctions about color. Or commingling of the two races upon terms unsatisfactory to each other. You can't commingle the two federal legal status. You can move from one to the other, but you can't commingle them. This is what Plessy versus Ferguson was all about. Showing you that you can't be a black and use the 14th Amendment. That's citizen law. Let's do one more thing. The Civil Rights Act of 1964. Some argue, and I agree, the most progressive civil rights legislation of its time. But there's one thing that we must understand when we read this, and it's one word: discrimination. Every time we see discrimination, we must understand discrimination has to deal with two or more different categories of people. The unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people. Free white and free black are two different categories of people. And so, before we start on the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we must understand that this isn't about becoming one people and being one under the law. This isn't about, even in 1964, our most landmark, people who call themselves black, the most landmark civil rights legislation for the people who call themselves black. It still does not grant you equal protection under the law. It still doesn't use the 14th Amendment as the meat and bone of the changes that was able to happen under the law. It's still skirted around your citizenship. So now that that we've had so many different examples of how blacks are not citizens, and it remains throughout the law, and now we're all the way up to 1964. Let's look at how the intricate part of law works, and how you think you're getting some type of equality when you're really not getting any equality at all, because you refuse to change statuses. Because you refuse to change them, they can trick you with words like discrimination and anti-discrimination laws. Because as long as we can use words like discrimination, we are maintaining that you are two different categories of people. And that's not equality. That's a trick. But one of the biggest things that was accomplished in the 1964 Civil Rights Act was the end of Jim Crow. But it prohibited discrimination in public facilities, saying that you're not the same people. We just want you to be treated as if you are. That's the game. It became illegal to force segregation in schools. And so you still didn't get equality or your citizenship. You got law that protected you in public from being discriminated against, treated like you wasn't a citizen. You got which was still an advancement, but within the law, you didn't win citizenship for your category. You didn't leave your category. They just offered you within the law provisions that prohibited people from treating in public these two federal legal statuses different. That's it. And so that's what this installment is all about. Trying to show you within, starting with the Naturalization Act that showed you that free white is the only citizen here. Going to the Dredd Scott, where the Supreme Court said the same thing. Free blacks are not citizens here. Could not be a U.S. citizen. This status will never mean U.S. citizen. It's number 3. You can be here and move up, but the status will never mean citizen. And it never will be. It never has meant U.S. citizen. And if you want to be that, that's a non-citizen. And if you do want to be that, the court stated that Scott had no rights. That's 57. 63 showed you that you went from slave to free black. Proof that you did not go from from slave to free white or citizen is in the civil rights cases, where they tried to argue that the 13th Amendment not only abolished slavery but gave you rights of free white citizens to the former slaves, and that the 14th Amendment could be used to protect you. They disagreed. This was 1883. Then we even go to Plessy versus Ferguson, which shows you that it was all about absolute equality of the races before law. Is what the 14th Amendment was about. And the only way to have that is for everybody to be one nation, one category. And that commingling of the races is unsatisfactory. They're two different terms that's unsatisfactory to each other. One of them is superior than the other, or inferior to the other, by definition. And so you can't commingle those. That won't be tolerated. And so you lose, Plessy. And then even in the Civil Rights Act, where you still are not able to use the 14th Amendment, which guarantees you equal protection, but only for its citizens. And so our inability to use the 14th Amendment is more proof that we can't use it because it's only for its citizens. And we don't count as citizens because we occupy number 3. Thanks again.